the Age of AI, the show for leaders who want real results, not more noise. Join Emmanuel Rose as he helps business builders turn AI from a confusing add-on into a practical advantage with clearer messaging, stronger trust, and smarter systems. If you felt a shift happening in real time, you're not imagining it. In the agentic pivot, Emmanuel calls it the move from experimenting with AI to building with it, so it supports your team, your brand, and your growth. Let's get into it.
Welcome to Marketing in the Age of AI. My guest today is Will Leach, and he's the founder of the CEO Mind State Group and author of Marketing to Mind States. Teaches behavioral marketing at SMU's Cox School and Texas A&M's Applied Behavioral Economics program. In over 25 years, he has become a leading authority on subconscious mind state research. Will works with brands to align messaging with how people actually think and feel. Today, we will dig into practical ways to apply behavioral design, measure its impact, and explore how AI changes the playbook. Well, good to see you.
I hope I can live up to that run on. I love it. Looking forward to this conversation, Emmanuel. How have you been?
I've been really good. It's a great time to be alive. We live in interesting times.
We do.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Talk to me a little bit about your work with mind states and what all of us should know in kind of the mind states 101 as a marketing professional.
Yeah. So quickly, I've been doing marketing research for the better part of 30 years now. I started off in biotech and energy, found my way over to PepsiCo, and brought in behavioral sciences into their market research function. And, when you look at the world of behavioral psychology and just human understanding, after 30 years and many, many academic studies out there show that the vast majority of decisions are made at the subconscious level. You and I know that. I think intuitively we all know that, but there's real science behind that. So I tell my students that every given day, you make about 35,000 decisions every single day. So if you were doing cost benefit analyses on every one of those decisions, you wouldn't get out of bed. The world's just too complex, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So what mind states is all about is there is a filter that all of us have, and it's at the subconscious level. Your mind is constantly filtering.
The reticular activating system?
Yeah, there it is. Come on now. Yes, that's exactly. You said it before I did. Exactly. The RAC.
Yeah.
So there is this filter that every one of your customers have, every one of us have. And what this is doing is it's constantly deciding what you're going to, what's going to grab your focus and your attention and what's not. And the vast majority of the RAC is pushing stuff away. That hurts you as a marketer. That hurts us as business owners, because if you don't understand this filter, the RAC, then you can't get through to the subconscious. So that's what mind states do, helping you understand your psychological mindset of your customers and then messaging to mind states. And that's what the book was written about, Marketing to Mind States, was understanding that the RAC of your customers and then messaging to it.
I love that. And it's the vernacular, right, is that people are in market, right? Like they're in market versus being a suspect or a prospect.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
So again, how do we knowing that like if I'm driving by the tire store and I don't need tires, how are they going to get through? How would a tire marketer get through my brain?
Yep. So it starts off with what we call goal theory. And here's the idea that every behavior you take is towards a goal, whether you know it or not. And the vast majority of the time, you don't know these goals. So the first thing you want to do is understand what are your customers' goals as it relates to tires, right? Now, you may be driving past that store, Emmanuel, and you have no goal around tires, frankly.
No.
Consciously. But there is this thing going on in the background that you have a goal. That goal could be, hey, you know what? A couple of months ago, I realized that there's a chunk out of my tire. That's happening to me outside right now, but I'm still delaying because I don't want to go buy new tires. There's a chunk out of the sidewall. Okay, so those are your goals, right? Now, if I know that my customers delay getting tires for as long as they can, that's a typical goal. I could totally see that. Let's make sure we get it down to the barest minimum. Well, I can actually activate on that goal because behind that goal, there is a fear. We all have these fears. If I wait too long, that tire could pop. I could get into an accident. That's the
Right.
next step of that model, right? What are people's motivations as it relates to their goal of delaying that tire spend? I'm making this up as I go along, by the way, so I'm going to do my
That's all
best.
right. I mean, you've been making it up for 30 years, so who's going to even check on you?
So what if there's just motivation? Well, you may think of your tires and say, okay, the reason what motivates me to go out and spend money, which I probably don't have necessarily, I don't think I necessarily need, but you know what? Something is making me drive and consider tires. That's called your motivation. There's 9 human motivations. One of them is called security. You know that from Maslow, right? So there's this desire that we all have for safety and to eliminate costs and basically to eliminate threats. Sorry, protection from threats. So that's called the security motivation. So if I now know that, okay, his goal is to delay this as long as possible, but he has a fear. It's about protection. He's motivated by protection. He doesn't want to get into a crash. That's the second part of the mind state model. The third one's really fast, which would be, how do you approach your goals? Are you seeking to minimize losses? Are you seeking to maximize gains? We all have these two approaches.
Yeah.
So if I can understand that about you, I can now message you in a way that says, if you come to my tire store, you won't get screwed. That is minimizing of risk. Or I can say, come to my tire store, get the best value. That's maximizing gains. Same tires you're selling me, right, Emmanuel? But I'm framing that up in a psychological way that makes more intuitive sense. And then all I have to do after that is drop in what we call a cognitive heuristic, a bias. We all have biases that help us make quick, fast, easy decisions. If you can do all that into your marketing, you can generally grab people's attention, increase emotional conviction to take action, and then ultimately, hopefully, lower friction to your messaging and get somebody to actually buy a tire. That's what the book talks about, and that's how the book, Marketing and Mindstates, tells marketers how to do that.
I love that. We've got to, first of all, we got to understand what people's motivations are around the product more than, or I guess their motivations are their feelings around the product, right? Is that?
Yep, that's right.
That
Motivations
right?
and feelings, you can use them kind of like together.
Yeah. Now it's really clear for a B2C play, but what about in a B2B situation where I'm selling something that's like for the restaurants, kitchens, and it's an operations person who's making that decision. How does that work into the system?
Yep. So it gets a little more complex, but it's still the same thing. We are all human beings at the end of the day. And even if I'm running operations for this kitchen or whatever, I have my own personal career goals, job goals, whatever. But then I also I'm held accountable for business goals, right? So I have to take two of those things into consideration. Now, what I actually do, I do about 30% of my business is B2B. So what I tend to do is actually I find my more effective marketing goes towards the human, not the career person, more of what they're trying to accomplish. Because we're kind of self-serving. Even if we have a job, even if we love our own company, that we work for, they're still like, we want to make sure that we're seen as being competent, or that we get the respect we deserve, or I can save my job, right? So what you can do is you figure out that decision maker's mind state, and you message to that person's ultimate goals that they have for their career and their job. But then you have to add on, what is their role? And what is kind of what are they being held accountable for their job? And then on the really biggest customers, maybe the ones that are multinational corporations, it's even harder, unfortunately, because now they have systems of people they have to get approvals from, right? And that's where things get really complex, because I can message to you, but if you're not the decision maker, then I need to figure out
the dreaded committee.
It's really, really complex. So I don't do a lot of that work because ultimately it's so hard to figure out these committees and how decisions are really made. But ultimately, it's the same idea. We all are human. We're all making emotional decisions. The more I know about who's making that decision and what the emotions are that's driving them in RAC and what their goals are, I'm more effective in my positioning, my messaging, my sales calls, etc.
Love it. And I love also that you don't just have this theoretical position that you've taken, but you've also built a tool to help us figure this out, named Bevy. So what in the world is Bevy, and how do I use it for my clients?
Well, after 10 years of me getting up on stages, Me, like I speak at 2 universities, or I teach at 2 universities. I figured out a human truth, Emmanuel. People don't really want to learn this stuff. They just want somebody to do it for them, right? I'm the behavioral scientist. It took me a decade to figure that out.
I got a lot of other stuff to do. Just do it for me, please. I'll pay you.
Though, man. I love it. I love what I do, but nobody is like me, right? So here's what I did. So what I did was I created a tool about 3 years ago. We've been under development, which we call Bevy, behavioral intelligence. What Bevy is she is an emotionally intelligent brand persona that's built on your customer data, your brand data, and then deep psychological concepts, mostly from my book, Marketing to Mind States, but also some other things like motivational psychology and regulatory fit theory and things like that. So what she does, imagine that you could have Bevy on your phone. We work together and we basically create deep emotional understanding of your customers. Now, most of the time you have that information lying around. You don't realize you do. They're in your customer service calls. They're in your reviews on Google and on Amazon. Maybe you did some focus groups. You maybe did some research, a survey, a consumer research, satisfaction study, something like that. I take all of that information. I build out what we call the customer foundation. Just what does your customer think about you, the world, et cetera. Then we build out that brand foundation. We just take your documents you already have. I'm sure you have a unique selling proposition. You probably have a positioning deck. You probably have your company pitch deck. We build all that together, and then we put this all into a package, which allows you to sit there in a meeting, and you could have Bevy on your phone. You're in a meeting, and brands make decisions every single day, 30 or 40 decisions, right? All the time you're making decisions. Right now, if you want the voice of the customer, you gotta kind of go do a survey, or you just got to use your gut feel. And we now know that gut feel. Why would you use your gut feel if you can have 24/7 access to your customer? So that's what Bevy does. Bevy will talk to you like your customer, but better than just like a normal AI, which simulates what customers will say. Bevy does something very different, deep psychological analysis. So Bevy will actually simulate how your customers think, make decisions, and ultimately feel. So it's a very different level of deep psychological understanding and usefulness. So the example, I have a customer here in Dallas that's using Bevy and basically wanted to do some work on menus. And he was like, well, I think that kids really want mac and cheese with my nuggets. That's pretty okay, right? That makes sense. Kids love mac and cheese for
and
sure.
Nuggets,
Nuggies, right?
Hey, sign me up for that. He doesn't.
Right, I know, really. Maybe that's not the best. I was like, well, yeah, of course. But what he didn't know is that he has about 7,500 franchises. That if they all make that decision and that menu design goes wrong, you're in some big trouble, right? All these franchises are going crazy. You hurt my sales.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have time to go and do a research and a lot of money to do the research. So he just goes and accesses Bevy. In his case, it's not Bevy. The name of his Bevy is Charlotte. So Charlotte, his key consumer, has a conversation with him, and he can talk, say, Charlotte, here's my idea. I'm thinking about switching from nuggies or away from one thing, pizzas to nuggies. What do you think about that? She now knows, here's what I think about that. I know my son, and my son really enjoys the pizza. That's one of the reasons why we go there. But, he likes mac and cheese. Under these circumstances, I would at least consider it. So he has a conversation, more and more conversation, until finally gets to the point where he has to change the menu design, not just to mac and cheese with the nuggies, but also incorporating some of the pizza elements in there as well. So that's kind of the stuff that you can just do really quickly, really rapidly. More importantly than just having this 24/7 conversation is now Charlotte can write messaging because she has deep understanding of how she makes decisions. She can write messaging that fits to her. So she can write messaging, she can review your advertising, she can come up with new product ideas, all based upon your customer. So the stuff that I was doing for the last decade of doing these really deep psychological studies for clients, now AI can simulate your customer at that deep level, and you can make decisions much faster.
Wow, that is awesome. And then you're able to have multiple ICPs inside of Bevy, right?
Yeah. That's one of the first things I noticed is I was thinking you have your one ICP. Brands have many ICPs. I didn't realize how many brands have multiple ICPs. So Bevy comes with 4, which are real basic. The ones that you would expect. Who's my core customer? One of the customers is basically we'll take on your who's your emerging target, a loyalist, and a lapsed user. So those are 4 you come up with, but we have clients that have like 7 or 8. So you just got to load in. As long as you have the information for each one of those ICPs, you load in, this is the ICP, this is my ideal consumer I want to talk to, and she'll take on that persona for you.
That is awesome. Yeah, I love to look under the hood of this, and it's an amazing tool. I've always wanted to be able to fold in like the sales data from the ICP, from the actual customers that match the ICP, and look
Wow.
at building out chain transactions or product development or brand extensions.
Yeah, that's interesting. Or could you forecast using
Yeah,
that? Right? Like
yeah,
it's almost like saying, hey, rather than you using just pure mathematics, you could build in that work with Bevy and then say, Bevy, the mathematics would show that you're ready to, to sign up or renew. But then you say, actually, based upon the psychology, she's not ready. Or if she is ready, here's what you want to say about that. Here's how you
yeah,
want to frame up that renewal.
yeah. Love it.
Interesting.
It who's your ICP for this for Mind State's Bevy product?
Yeah, so there's two. I come from the world of market research, and so mainly when I first started Bevy was going to Fortune 500 firms that have big market research departments because market researchers often ask these questions: What will my customer say if I do this? What do they want? And so I built Bevy for that customer target. What started happening, Emmanuel, was when I was having conversations, the market researchers were talking to marketers, and the marketers started kind of getting into my meetings, and they said,
Yeah,
"Hey, listen, we want you to just create these for us," because what happened was they're like, my market researcher, yeah, they can help me out with my messaging, but I want to have my own. We have my own copywriters, so I want to have a tool that can actually write to the mind state of my customer.
sure.
So
Yeah,
that's kind of been pivoting. My ICP has been moving more towards marketing professionals, whether that's internal inside of a company, maybe you're a senior vice president, or maybe you're just a copywriter inside of a company, or an agency. We get a few agencies out there, marketing creative agencies, who are
yeah,
using Bevy as their internal creative staff that they can actually generate creative to
sure.
their customers. So very few of those, but more in-house marketing professionals.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, very sophisticated, very grounded, psychologically grounded custom GPT for each client. So yeah, that's
Yeah, yeah. It
cool.
takes a lot of, if you have the right data too. So for some clients, you're like, it wouldn't make sense because if you don't have the right data, then you don't really have much more than a more expensive chat GPT, right? So if you have
Yeah,
that deep customer data, or we can go get that data for you. So the more sophisticated marketing groups doesn't mean that they're big, but they just have data. Like the client I was telling you about in Dallas, they didn't think they had enough data, but they forgot that they were franchises, right? They're taking customer service complaint calls for years and they're recording. I'm like, that is a ton of data because when people call you, they're either going to tell you what they love or what
yeah.
they hate. And in those in those conversations, they're telling you a lot about their psychology.
I think it's usually like 80% is complaints, if I remember.
I bet it's got to be right.
Yeah, right. Well, really, I love the work. I love that you've built something interactive for us to put your theories into action. So, good job, and I wish you all the best. The mindstategroup.com/Bevy. It'll be in the show notes as well. And what's the process for somebody if they wanted to get started using Bevy?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. The first thing you want to do is just go to mindstategroup.com. You can check out Bevy at /Bevy, BEVI, and check it out. There's a whole page dedicated to it. Then there's going to be a button on there that says, "Hey, just click time with me." You could schedule a 30-minute meeting with me. I am not going to upsell you because I don't want you to fail either. So if you're ready for Bevy, that's great. If you're not ready for Bevy, I can tell you how to get ready for Bevy. So that's the quickest way of doing. There's videos that you can watch as well on mindstategroup.com and learn a lot more about the product.
All right, and tell me about burnt orange. What is the psychological precursor for using burnt orange on the buttons?
Oh, that's funny. Now I'm looking at burnt orange. I wish I understood color theory a little bit more. I will tell you that red is associated with power. So maybe,
Uh-huh.
but it's burnt power. So I don't know what that is. It's reminding me of University of Texas and me being a Texas A&M graduate back
Look at
there.
horns.
That's been off-putting, to be honest with you, a little bit, Emmanuel.
All right. Well, it doesn't count if I don't at least do something that's a guffaw. So, well, I really appreciate your time today, and I think that you're doing great work, and I wish you all the best
Thanks, man.
on this Bevy. Yeah. So, thanks again for being here, and I really hope for the best for you, Will. love to deepen the ICP with some psychological conditions, and check out Will Leach's book called Mind State, and reach out to him and talk to him about using Bevy in your marketing campaigns so that you can get better results by talking to people's emotions. Hope you enjoyed this conversation that I had with Will Leach from Mind State. I did. I learned a lot. I also hope that you take time today to dig into the LLM of your choice and automate one process, build a custom GPT, so that you can win some of your work week back, some of your time back. And with that time, you continue to upskill, that you spend it with your friends and family, or that you get outside, away from the screens and out into nature. This is Emmanuel Rose, Marketing in the Age of AI.
Thanks for listening to Marketing in the Age of AI. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. Your copy of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI is available at Amazon.com or EmmanuelRose.com. You can also connect with Emmanuel on LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.